earlier this afternoon, there were very, very large explosions in Dahia, which is in southern Beirut, pretty densely populated Shia area in the city, also where the a Hezbollah stronghold in the town. This is the strike. Pretty intense. Looks like they used bunker busters on 6 buildings, completely flattened. Here's the aftermath. Seems like the target was a bunch of Hezbollah officials, the Hezbollah headquarters, which were supposedly buried in bunkers underneath these buildings. And the main target, which everyone's talking about now, is Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, the general secretary. So there's not been any confirmation that he's dead yet, although I think given that it's been quite a few hours now and we still haven't had any proper updates, and given some murmurs in the news, it seems fairly possible. I think basically the more time passes, the more likely it is that he's dead. I think Hezbollah sources told Reuters that they've lost communication with the top branch, so people can't contact him. I guess big questions. These are civilian buildings that supposedly had these headquarters underneath them. How many civilians were in the buildings? We don't know, because a general warning was given by the IDF for people to get out of Hezbollah areas in the country, and that was a few days ago. The problem is that Dahia it's obviously a Hezbollah area. Everyone knows that. The problem is it's very densely populated. It's like 800,000 people live there. So I don't know if everyone left. I think maybe it's not. It's very, very likely that a lot of people stayed because they didn't have anywhere else to go, or they just felt they were safe in their areas, or they thought there would maybe be a more immediate warning. They thought there would maybe be a more immediate warning if their building was hit. As far as I know, I don't think there was a warning given for this particular strike. I have relatives who live like 2.5 kilometers or 3 kilometers away from this strike. And they're there right now. So I don't think there was a warning for this. At least there wasn't a warning for the people further away. There's a big question about whether or not that's legal, the warning. It seems to be that if we go by customary international law, states are generally required to warn in areas where there's civilians, but they do have an exception where cases where the element of surprise is essential to the success of an operation or to the security of the attacking forces or that of friendly forces. So obviously, if they wanted to hit Nasrallah, like a person, if they give a warning, people can leave, but so can he. If they want to hit something that's harder to move in a short space of time, say like weapon stockpiles, then it makes more sense that they could give a warning for a couple of hours, because that lets people leave, but they might not be able to bring all their rockets and their weapon stockpiles with them. So that's the gist. It still doesn't answer the question of proportionality. It doesn't answer the question of how many people have died. So far, we know about 70 injured at least, and a handful dead, but that number is almost definitely going to go up given that it's a big pile of rubble. When a building gets blown up like that, 6 buildings, no less, high rises, then it's going to take a while to count the dead. So I would wait to see with that. As for Nasrallah, I guess there's a kind of a historical comparison. In the 2006 war, the IDF tried to hit Nasrallah's location in Dahia as well. The difference is, there's a few differences. Israel have been a lot more successful so far in their endeavors compared to this last war. In the 2006 war, Israel was kind of on the fence for a while about even going for Beirut at all, anywhere in Beirut, because it included civilians, and they thought it'd be really controversial. They didn't know if it would necessarily support their military aims. There was a bit of opposition from the cabinet, but ultimately the cabinet approved it, and they approved strikes on Dahia, most primarily 2 buildings, one of which was supposed to be the Hezbollah headquarters, and the other one which was supposed to be the apartment complex that Nasrallah lived in. Now, they gave a pretty long warning. Their warning was anything between 18 and 24 hours. I think it was about 18. and they conducted the strike. They were given assurances, at least according to people from within the cabinet, they were given assurances that civilians had left. They carried out the strikes, they blew up the buildings, they made up a lot of damage, but they didn't get Nasrallah. Apparently, he was underneath those buildings that were hit, but he was in a bunker. And he was protected by enough concrete that he wasn't injured. Now, the reason people think it's quite likely that he's dead now is because the last time this happened, Nasrallah, within hours, went on TV and did a broadcast to reassure everyone that he was alive. That's like very standard crisis control. He reassured everyone that he was alive. And he also, not only was he alive and unharmed, he did this broadcast, which was also supposed to take out their transmitting capabilities because it was also included the headquarters of their television broadcaster. But the television broadcaster had multiple different areas, like points where they could broadcast from. So I think Israel tried to hit this broadcaster like at least 10 or 15 or 20 times during this war. And I think the longest they were able to stop Hezbollah from broadcasting was like an hour. So that was a really big failure on Israel's part. So he broadcasts a couple of hours after they tried to kill him, not only to let people know that he's still alive, but also he goes up on screen and says, "People of Beirut, look over to the sea. In a moment, you're going to see that we're going to strike an Israeli boat, an Israeli ship." And they struck an Israeli ship. And you could see the fire from Beirut. And that was a real turning point because a lot of people who otherwise didn't like Hezbollah, Sunnis and Christians in Lebanon, and Druze, were like, whoa, this guy actually is not just rhetorical. This guy says he's going to do a thing, and then he does a thing. That's refreshing. It's not like, we're not used to that from Middle Eastern leaders. So it massively boosted his popularity. The fact that he survived this strike, the fact that Israel had struck a civilian area that they weren't expected to do, the fact that Nasrallah just came on 2 hours later and immediately counterattacked and hit an Israeli target. I think they killed like 4 or 5 people on that ship. So this was like a very big propaganda success for Nasrallah, this entire war. It turned a lot of people I know as personally, who used to really not like Hezbollah, but it suddenly turned them into favor of that organization because even if we don't like them politically or domestically, they're the people who fight with Israel, and they did a good job fighting with Israel. They made Israel look weak. They make Israel look incompetent. They made Israel basically fail in all their major military objectives. So the contrast between that war and right now is so far a pretty big turning point in Israel's favor as far as military accomplishment goes. What it's going to mean for the future, I have no idea. Like if Nasrallah is dead, I don't even know how essential he was to Hezbollah's fighting capabilities. He's not a fighter himself. He's not even a general. He's a cleric. He gives orders to the military. He is the top of the organization, and he's been there for decades. Whether it disorientates them or whether or not, because it's a religious organization, he's a replaceable figure, because again, as long as you're dogmatically stuck to the ideology, it doesn't really matter. Like the idiosyncrasies of yourself as a leader, although he is obviously known for being very charismatic, having a good history in terms of fighting Israel, and having a big cult of personality around him. But so far, the current speculation is that he's dead. It looks like there is not really that much damage control coming from Iraq, Iran, or Hezbollah right now. There have been other strikes in Dahia since then, this time with warnings because they're claiming to be hitting weapons depots instead. And again, with a weapons depot, you can give a warning because the people can leave. It's harder to move the weapons. Whether this stops the war is a big question. I don't think it would. I don't think killing Nasrallah would stop Israel from even continuing their operations because it might embolden them. If Nasrallah is dead, then they're going to think, well, we either step back and give this organization that is completely and dogmatically devoted to our destruction, we can just give them a breather and at least return people to the north for now and then deal with a rebuilt Hezbollah later, or what? Or they just keep on going. Like maybe that might be their rationale. We know that Netanyahu actually approved this strike and then went to give his address at the UN. He made sure that this strike happened whilst he was addressing the UN because he thought that that would apparently lure the Hezbollah people into a sense of security. They would think that he's not going to do anything whilst he's addressing the UN, which is quite wild. I know Iran reported that he was okay, then they changed it. Yeah. So they don't know. Apparently he can't be contacted. He could be injured and still alive. That could be a thing. But so far, it's not looking too great for Hezbollah, because the thing about the 2006 war was it wasn't just the Israeli aggression on Lebanon that rallied people around Hezbollah. It wasn't just that. It was also that Nasrallah handled the aggression. He responded to the aggression. For that entire war, one of their goals was to stop the rockets. Even during the war, they were supposed to take out rocket launch sites. They didn't reduce the number of rockets for the entire war. I think the largest rocket barrage of the 2006 war was in one of the last days of the war. So I think Israeli aggression on Lebanon that's not accompanied by a strong Hezbollah response, I don't think will rally people around Hezbollah in the same way that the 2006 war did. Because the charisma of Nasrallah and the competence of the army was a large part of that propaganda victory. If you're also wondering, where is it? If you're wondering why there are currently videos, I don't know, who's this good for? If you're Israel, I'm sure it's great. Nasrallah, the guy that's harassed the north of Israel for decades, is gone. Big military W, woo woo. If you're Lebanese, it's probably shit because you have no idea if it's going to lead to a de-escalation or if it's going to lead to even more, like it's going to embolden Israel to just try and finish the job, which means more people die, which also means people who are part of Hezbollah will start to try and lie low and take up positions in towns and areas that are not traditionally their territory. And that means that Sunnis and Christians who don't even like Hezbollah get stuck into it as well, unfortunately. Yeah, like if you're Lebanese, it's still not great. It's still pretty fucked. If you're Syrian, apparently it's good because there's been no shortage of videos of people in Idlib handing out sweets and celebrating the potential death of Nasrallah. People handing out free baklava.
الله أكبر الله أكبر توزيع الحلو تفضل تفضل الله أكبر حلي الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
This is Syria. This is Idlib. Yeah. Why do Syrians hate Hezbollah? Because Bashar al-Assad, you ever heard of him? Chemical weapons, brutal dictator, brutal civil war that's taken about 500,000 lives, maybe 600,000 since 2012. Hezbollah helped him. And that's it. The Syrian army, when they were fighting against the rebels in 2012, were, like a lot of these Arab armies, were quite shit. They were inexperienced. They were corrupt. They hadn't fought in any wars. Do you know who was experienced? Was Hezbollah. They'd fought with Israel. They had plenty of experience. So Hezbollah fighters and commanders and leaders and generals went over and basically took these Syrian boys and made them men. They trained them. They made them into a very cohesive unit. They gave them confidence. They helped them in battles. They helped them reclaim villages, especially along the border. They helped them in sieges. They carried out a few atrocities of their own. Yeah, that's why Syrians don't like, and Sunnis don't really like Hezbollah. No. That's why in previous days we've seen videos of Hezbollah members with pictures of Hezbollah leaders on their cars being harassed by Sunnis as they try to enter towns like Tripoli in northern Lebanon. Yeah, Hezbollah are they're a horrible organization. Like, I don't understand. I know people. I know they're very good at winning the hearts and minds of ignorant white leftists because they rhetorically and symbolically, I guess, gesture support for Palestine, as if those rockets in northern Israel are really helping the Palestinians at all. I would argue they don't. They kill Arabs as well. They burn Arab areas and they kill Druze people as well. Yeah, Hezbollah are not a good organization. They're just not.
يا روحك يا حافظ يا الله أكبر الله أكبر
So I think someone said curse upon your soul, and I think someone else said you're waking up the neighbors.
فتس حسن يا حسين هاي من أساس هاي من أساس مبارك يا جماعة مبارك للجميع يا حسين شو الوضع فتس حسين
Don't get fooled, Sunnis in Syria aren't very fond of Israel either. It's really funny when you see videos like this and you see videos of Arabs fighting with Houthis or Hezbollah or whatever else, and people like Elon Levy will retweet it and be like, oh, base Sunnis. I was like, bro, you have no fucking idea what these people think of you, okay? They might hate Hezbollah, but you know who they hate more? You, okay? Stop. It's so nice. It's, yeah. I almost feel bad for the Israelis when they see Arabs doing things that they like and they're like, oh, maybe there's hope. So I really hope there isn't 300 dead in those two buildings, like 6 buildings, sorry, that like someone said there was. I really hope that's not the case. That's the story though. Not a good day for Hezbollah. Not the best day for Lebanon. Good day for people in Syria. Good day for your Kurdish Syrian refugee neighbors in Europe. Okay. Palestinians in Israel thought the same about Israelis because of standing together 2 months ago. Like, oh, they're the good ones. Okay. Yeah. He was giving this stupid speech. We were watching it. We were watching it when the news broke. When he holds up this map, his props. He's got the other map, which is green, and it's all the countries that are at peace with Israel and doing trade deals. And then it's the curse, and it's all in black. It's like the blackest of black. It's like you took the slider on the RGB thing and just dragged it further than anyone could ever imagine.
Pressure.
The prop master. That's my take. I don't know. Some people disagree with it. Some people agree with it. But fuck you. You mentioned Sunnis and Christians don't like Hezbollah, like point blank. Ain't that simple, and you know that. Didn't I also say that that Hezbollah have won their support at various times? I mean, I can show you the polling. I'm sorry, like. Right now, okay, during this war, they've done a little, like, again, when they fight Israel, it helps them. When they intimidate the fuck out of all their political opponents and leave everyone in disarray, obviously that helps them. When they get funding from Iran to rebuild the place after wars and develop the healthcare system, people like that, people rally around the flag and shit. But at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, where do you think their support comes from? Mostly, it comes from Shiites. Like, it's not controversial. But yes, I agree. It's not that simple.